I'm gonna show. I'll let you know when. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased, true crime channel. Now, yes, I apologize. We're running a little late today. A couple of things. Why? First, I'm in trial. And so I knew I wouldn't make it back to the office by 6. And so to shorten any distance from the courthouse going to the office, I said, Frank, maybe we could just set up at the house and we could put it on the porch. How's that? And then, although we usually have pretty good internet, the one time you need it, right, it goes off. So hopefully we don't have any further issues. But I was able to drive home as quickly as possible since I left the courthouse about 5:20. Had a quick bite to eat. The lovely Miss Kristen arranged that before. Don't hate her for it, but that's right. Her masseuse is downstairs and getting a massage. And, there's certain things in life that, everybody loves a good massage. She just happens to have one that comes to the house when she requests it. So thank you, Moses. Appreciate you taking care of all that. So thanks for the food as well. All right. So obviously a couple of big things. One, I'm in trial. I can't talk about the case until it's probably done, hopefully tomorrow. But man, I'm telling you, it's one of these cases I can't wait to try and talk to you about it. And hopefully we don't have any more internet issues going on this evening. Hopefully the sound is here, that is in good shape as well. And then obviously the Barry Morphew preliminary hearing wrapped up today. Now, we brought you the notes from Julie, one of our Crime Talk producers, and she was taking copious notes. We went through those the other day, and I kept saying, nobody wants somebody that has committed a crime to get off scot-free. I mean, in all honesty, that's not really justice, right? But the government has to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And I've been kind of saying, hey, let's wait and see. Maybe the prosecution has something else that we just don't know about. And, there were a lot of people saying, hey, Scott, what are you doing? I mean, the government's just holding back. They don't have to present all their evidence, things like that. Guess what? No, the prosecution doesn't have to lay out all of their evidence, but they're going to put forward enough evidence, obviously, to establish probable cause at the preliminary hearing. But more importantly, okay, and this is the thing, most preliminary hearings are waived. That's usually the first time an offer is extended to a defendant in the case and says, hey, if you waive the preliminary hearing, this is kind of an initial offer, negotiations will continue. So 99.9% of most preliminary hearings are waived, except in homicide cases. Why? Because, you're looking at big time. Now, do preliminary hearings go? Yes, they do. Most of them don't. And sometimes district attorneys hate preliminary hearings for some reason. They just think it's a waste of time. Hey, the judge has already found probable cause. You know as well as I do, the judge is going to rubber stamp this and find probable cause. And sometimes you have to say, hey, listen, my client sometimes doesn't necessarily believe that this is really what the evidence is, whatever, it's weak. And you say, listen, this will be the best 20, 25 minutes of, for this case. Let my client hear and see the evidence, kind of a reality check. Now here, obviously it's a preliminary hearing. It's a homicide case. We knew from the beginning that it was going to be highly contested, and both sides have very good attorneys handling the case. And I've read through all of, Julie's notes. I haven't had time to look at any other reports coming out of the preliminary hearing today, but it just seems like everything that I've seen, even the notes from, the preliminary hearing today is that this is not the strongest case. And I'm not trying to, come from, he's a defense attorney, he's just a hack, he doesn't. No, I'm trying to look at this as objectively as possible. And if this was the evidence that was against my client, I'd be saying, game on. And I'm not sure why the judge has to set this matter for another hearing date. I think the next date is September 17th. The parties can submit a brief or some sort of closing argument for the court to consider. I don't know why the court just didn't say, all right, I'm going to give you each side 15 minutes to present your argument. And both sides are going to stay what the standard is, the standard of proof, obviously, probable cause. The government gets the benefit of all the evidence being viewed in light most favorable to the prosecution. And, the chances are pretty good that the court is going to bind the matter over, although he may say this is not the strongest case. And but his job is not to be the replacement 13th juror, so to speak, and let the matter go to trial if that's what needs to take place, right? But, the prosecution's got to be looking at this and saying, wow, we really got to come up with something more. And so, okay, not a happy marriage. Okay, gee, what is that? At least 50% of America at some point, right? Not a great marriage. Wife is engaging in extramarital affair. She obviously goes missing on Mother's Day. The whole disappearance is a little odd. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but, the theory of prosecution here is that somehow, with all the evidence that the prosecution's collected, evidence from the car, video, they somehow believe that Barry Morphew either attacked or had a fight with Suzanne, maybe used some sort of tranquilizer to knock her out, and then basically Barry disposes of her. Now, that's a very simplified theory of the prosecution, but really that's it. And he must have disposed, and he's got this window of time where they think that he was disposing of the body. Then you have to look at it and say, okay, not a happy marriage, but he's moving on, in the sense of he's going through life. He could probably go either way. It's kind of questionable whether he knew about an affair or didn't know about an affair. Seems like, he did know. I think at some point he told the girls. But then the reality of it is she disappears Mother's Day. He drives back. Then we have these mixed information. It is a very circumstantial evidence type of case. Now, does a circumstantial evidence case mean that you couldn't be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt to the charge of first-degree murder? No. Circumstantial evidence and direct evidence are viewed the same. Okay. Well, apparently we're back. I'm not exactly sure why the internet is doing what it's doing, but we'll be back here. Sorry about that. Hopefully. All right. Hopefully now we're back again and it'll all be good to go. All right. So the preliminary hearing, Barry Morphew, like I said, before we lost our internet connection here, the judge is ordering both sides back on September 17th. They can submit arguments. They can submit a brief basically saying why there is either probable cause or there is not. Like I said, it's a low standard of proof, but this is not a huge, overwhelming case. Okay, this is not a presumption, proof evident presumption great, where no bond is going to be set. I just don't see that from what I've seen, and I think that, it's going to. I don't know. I think the case is going to get bound over, but it's not the strongest case. The DA can't be going in saying, "Oh, this is great." And DAs aren't sandbagging. If they're not going to think, oh, I'm going to struggle through this preliminary hearing, make my case look as weak as possible, and then I'll really get him at trial. That's not going to happen. The district attorney is going to kind of overwhelm to let the defendant know, we're coming for you. We've got you. And I just didn't see that in this particular proceeding, at least the notes that I've seen from the this particular proceeding. Now it looks like, okay, here we go again. So I guess we're back. So we'll my apologies in advance. And so we'll have to see. Now, I think would have been more efficient if the judge had simply said, hey, we still have a little bit of the afternoon, if I remember correctly from what I saw. I think they ended about 2 o'clock or so. So Judge, give each side 15 minutes to argue and just rule from the bench. I'm not sure why the judge needs to, rule from the bench. I can tell you from the defense perspective, if the judge needs time to figure out a case, rule from the bench or whatever, that usually means, wow, the defense did really good here. I need a little more time to, figure out a way to rule for the prosecution. Now that's probably a little, exaggerated, but it's kind of true. All right. And then maybe the judge is saying, hey, this is a case where it is weak. And so I want to be able to outline and, put in chronological order what the prosecution has presented and why it's either sufficient or insufficient in this particular case. Most first-degree murder cases don't get thrown out at preliminary hearing. I had one about 3 months ago, I guess, where the judge reduced it from first-degree murder to conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. First time I've ever seen it, everyone was kind of like, well, now what do we do? But that's what the judge ruled. We dealt with it, we adjusted. But that judge ruled from the bench. I mean, that's what judges do. They make split-second decisions at that time, but maybe the court wants to do that. So let's, go through a couple of things here. I've got Julie's notes from day 4, and a couple of things that were inconsistent, so maybe we'll have to get Julie back in front of the camera when she returns tomorrow as well. It seems like they're all spun up about who was drinking coffee and who wasn't. Apparently, Nielsen was asking questions of one of the witnesses. 10 months Suzanne missing and hours of interview. Barry said he went west before going to Broomfield. No evidence in the form of GPS coordinates saying he went west. Grussing, the officer, missing mileage, so he asked if he went that way. Don't know if the whole airplane mode thing, apparently asked and answered about 100 times. Now, there's this thing, and Elizabeth Gregory, good timing, nice transition, our super chat here. What do you think about the immunity comment? Also, why not release the affidavit? I agree. Release the affidavit. There's no reason not to release the affidavit. Normally, these things are made public. I don't get it. I've never seen it withheld this long. There's no reason for the court to do that. The immunity question, though. Apparently, old Barry Morphew had asked for immunity on March 5th in case someone falsely convicts him. Okay? So apparently, Barry was watching YouTube videos of people saying, don't talk because people will use it against you. Agents asked Barry, do you carry any guilt? Barry says he carries guilt of taking her for granted, putting all his energy into hunting and making money. That doesn't, that question, do I need immunity or should I get immunity? Does that surprise me? No. How many times have I seen interviews with police where people will say, do I need to get an attorney? And then the police are like, oh, you're seeing the attorney word. I can't do that. So, him asking because he was watching stuff on YouTube, he didn't have an attorney at that time. I just, that's just him asking questions like, do I need to get some sort of immunity? Well, guess what? It means he has no idea what he's talking about because the prosecution's not going to give him immunity. They're the target of the investigation, right? Maybe if he was like a witness that they needed to give some immunity to, maybe, somebody was a drug dealer or something, but they needed to, they need him as an essential witness. That's when they give somebody immunity, not somebody that they think is the target. So I think that question about him asking for immunity is simply a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, what he's talking about. And, if you go back and look at my videos, when all this case started coming down, I think Barry Morphew put up a video or something to that effect. And I was just like, don't do it, man. Just keep your mouth shut. And, but he should have called somebody because he did him no favors. I mean, think about what the prosecution, how much less they would have if Barry Morphew had actually talked to an attorney and said, hey, I think I'm starting to get the feeling that you think that I'm the suspect here. I'm not going to talk to you. But he sends them and says, well, this is what I did. And then they try to go and contradict him and say, oh, you're lying. We think you went right when you went left. And we got you. And that's why attorneys advise clients not to talk to the police. The police are not there to clear Barry Morphew. They were clearly focusing on him. There's testimony, and it's a little confusing, particularly about the DNA about on the bike. And I need, we'll need to get some more clarification on this. But, apparently there was originally no DNA on the bike, and unknown DNA in the glove box of Suzanne's car, but then a mixture on the bike. I mean, it's a little confusing. But the point is, I guess the significant thing is there's an unknown, DNA. I mean, it could have been the bike mechanic that looked at it. It could have been, somebody had pulled it up. I think there was DNA from the police officer that handled the bike. So, it's just, this is not the most Loctite sealed case from what I can see. But I just don't, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, the judge is going to have some big guts to do that. I mean, to throw out a case where obviously a lot of emotion is involved, etc. It sounds like the kids believe Barry Morphew. They're standing behind him, and they're there to support him as well. So, like I said, I want a good case as well, something that's going to be, good lawyering going on. And I just don't see a overwhelming knockdown, drag out case for the prosecution this at this time. And I also don't, the prosecution, like I said, before we lost the internet, the prosecution is not going to hold back their evidence. They want to be able to show at the preliminary hearing, they're trying to establish proof, evident, presumption, great. Judge, we think this guy is so guilty, do not give him a bond, right? So it has to be proof, evident. Like, it's so overwhelming. Proof, evident, presumption, great. Presumption, great that he did it. There's something that directly links him to him. Here we're talking about broken tranquilizer guns, backing up at a doorways, backing up in trucks, doors opening at certain times. That's interesting, but I just don't see the overall strength of the evidence in that. We'll talk to Julie about it. She went down there because I asked her. I said, now, Julie, when we talked, what was it, last 2 weeks ago, I guess, when she came back, I said, you went down there kind of with the attitude that, Barry Morphew did it. And she goes, yeah, it's true. And she left there thinking, I don't know, kind of weak. So I'm really interested to see what she has to say when we talk to her tomorrow. She's driving back. I tried calling her when I left court, but she must be in a dead zone where her cell phone doesn't work. So, that's where, it's going to be interesting. It's such a low standard to make the case go forward, but is it enough to go proof beyond a reasonable doubt? And, we've talked about this. And listen, if she was having an extramarital affair, Suzanne Morphew was, okay, whatever. Does that mean he's going to be so upset? Or, he apparently told the authorities, listen, had she wanted a divorce, fine. Here, take your half and go. It wasn't that big a deal. I don't know what relevance it really shows. You think the prosecution would be more all over that because obviously, the jealous husband was upset and he was going to, if he can't have her, no one can, kind of thing. And they didn't really do that. So, I don't think that's that significant. The fact that she was, friending other guys on Facebook, doesn't mean a whole lot of anything in my humble opinion. Unless she, maybe they're old college roommates. Maybe they know each other from wherever. I don't know the circumstances of it. But, we talked a lot about the old malpractice in dating where these people go on a Tinder date and, they don't come back ever again. That's the kind of thing that, can happen. Now, clearly, Suzanne Morphew left with, she didn't take her purse. She goes, but why would she take her purse or her ID? She's going on a bike ride, right? That's the theory. She's going on a bike ride if that's really what happened. But we don't know, okay. They had an unhappy marriage. It doesn't mean that you murdered somebody. Hopefully if you're unhappy, you get a divorce. You don't go and, kill somebody. So anyway, let's take a look at some of the questions that you all have and see what we could do. Lisa Mounts, did Jeff, the boyfriend, did he ask for immunity? I don't think so. Says get arrested, lawyer. So being walked out into the office. Okay. Stephen Lundgren, I remember Scott's video where the guy's getting arrested. Yeah, it's a scene from Billions in Dollar. The FBI comes in, they raid the office, and, they have all their windbreakers on with all their alphabets on the back, and they simply say, get out, step back from your desk. And old Dollar Bill stands up and says, lawyer. So, that's what he should have done. Everybody's so concerned about looking guilty. He was worried about everyone in Salida thinks I'm going to look guilty. So what? Let them think what you want, because Barry Morphew probably, if this case goes forward and he gets convicted on something, he will have talked himself into it by basically, speculating, not remembering everything. And, like I said, if he did it, hey, then let's convict the guy. If he didn't do it, who wants an innocent man to go to prison? I don't think anybody does. It's Nancy Monroe. Why ask about immunity? He's so damn guilty. I understand that. I appreciate that. But like I said, I'd like to know the context of it. But my thinking it was more of like, hey, I've been watching these videos and everyone's saying don't talk. Should I get immunity or something? That's what I chalk that up as. And, and in all honesty, that may be something that's never actually comes in at trial either, because, people talking about being, invoking their rights or wanting to speak to a lawyer, usually that doesn't come in. So it's the kind of thing that may never actually come in as well. So let's see here. Lisa, can he use the money from Suzanne inheritance of the sale of their home to defend himself? Yes. Let's see. Wonder why they targeted Barry? ? Laugh out loud. Come on now. Yay. He's the one that said, oh, I think I was the last one to see her. Ooh, that's not good when you think your wife is, presumed to be deceased and you were the last one to see her. Usually the last one to see her is the one that maybe did some harm to her, assuming she's deceased. So I don't think I would have said that. But that's why, people just need to keep their mouth shut. But they don't. They never can. They never do. They never, ever do. But I'm telling you, in cases where I've walked people on homicide cases, the key thing is they keep their mouth shut. It's always the defendant's own words that come back and bite them in the ass. It always happens. Let's see here. A couple more questions. A question. Do you think Barry had the murder of Suzanne planned? Well, that assumes that he did it. Here's the thing. This is the kind of guy, and I don't know him, obviously. I just know what I've seen. He's got his family standing behind him. There's no way that this guy's ever going to admit that he did something. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, go form your questions. Nancy, gee, now I'm confused after you saying this, Scott. Uh-oh, Nancy, what did I confuse you about? Not trying to confuse you, just trying to get you to think about it from both sides here. Yeah, maybe the Chipmunks did it, I guess. Let's take a look at these questions here. What do people do hunting chipmunks? I don't know. They're usually little rodents kind of things, but I'm not exactly sure why you'd want to hunt chipmunks. I don't think. I guess it's a squirrel, I guess. So I guess people eat squirrel. I know down in the South I've seen people eat squirrel, but I don't think it's a great delicacy that you want to eat here in Colorado or anything like that. Nancy, what about the bedroom door? Was that busted? Well, apparently the previous owner said that it was busted, and they think that it was, that somehow that wasn't done by the previous owner, so therefore it must have been something related to this. Okay, when did it happen? I mean, seriously, prosecutors, and I see this all the time on a defense side, they over-try their case. They put together a 125-page affidavit or 152-page affidavit, and they throw everything in there. And by the size of that, it actually becomes, it creates doubt. They over-try it. They overthink it. Keep it simple. Their problem is they don't have a body. They don't have any DNA at the house of, like, blood, like the Photos Dulos case back in Connecticut. They have trash runs that turn out to be not really trash runs. The whole odor about the chlorine turns out to probably not be bleach. I guess the whole thing about the bleach turns out it's probably not bleach. It was right over the pool. The room was right over the pool, and there were chlorine issues. Apparently the people that worked there did that. So you have to be so careful as to what comes out, and you have to really wait and see what the cross-examination is of it or what evidence is presented. Because in the famous words of Freud, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, right? You can't read too much into it. We'll see. Somebody said, court TV, like, oh my God, Barry Morphew is over. He's quit. I don't know. You should ask some of these people that, work at Court TV, when was the last time they tried a homicide case? When was the last time they won a homicide case? When was the last time they did something other than comment on it? I literally just came from a trial today on the way home. That's why we're here overlooking the park, overlooking my balcony here, and so that we could go live tonight. So, this is a great question. Hippie plants. What happens if the case gets dismissed? Can he be tried again if there is more evidence, like they find her body? Great question. If the case were dismissed at the preliminary hearing, they couldn't just come back and say, we're going to refile again, clean our case up, and something along those lines. They would have to go to a grand jury to do that. What they may be able to do, but the reality of it is, if they couldn't meet their burden here, and I'm not saying they're not, it's a very low standard, okay? But I'm telling you, this is about as low as it gets. I mean, there's just nothing. There's just nothing that I see as a smoking gun. And if somebody thinks there is a smoking gun, let me know. Marlene Johnston, Scott, do you believe he's guilty? I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know if he's guilty. I don't know if he did it. Because what I have seen thus far, I'm not convinced that they have overwhelming evidence. Could this have been a situation where, maybe they have a fight, they have an argument about, her boyfriend, something along those lines, and, he loses his shit. Something happens. I don't know. Excuse my French. And something happens. I don't know. And then next thing you know, he's like, what do I do? Maybe, but I don't know. We don't have a body. We got missing money, according to Barry Morphew, to the police. But why would she just walk away? Why would she not go to see the guy that she was, dating, that was the love of her life in Michigan, right? That makes no sense. It makes no sense at all to me. So I don't know. Scott, thank you for answering. I wonder what the cost of this is dollar-wise. Oh, I'm sure you got 2 attorneys plus legal support staff, investigators working on this. What did they say they made on the house? $300,000 or something like that. I'm sure in the last few months, they've probably worked through at least $150,000 of that. And that's being, generous here. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And obviously the thing that always comes up in any kind of privately retained homicide case is, okay, you got the attorneys now. Can you afford to keep paying them? Because, the attorneys are going to stay as long as they're getting paid. They're not going to do charity work. So that's always the big, one of the big issues that you have to, think about here is, Barry, it's not like he can work, right? Who's going to hire this guy? Are going to pay him to do jobs? Oh my God, he's, been accused of, doing things to his, killing his wife. We'll have to wait and see. Debbie Schneider, wish the spy pen could talk. Me too. I mean, what was recorded and what was the recordings that were wiped out, I guess they were able to get some of them back, but clearly that was Suzanne Morphew's way of somehow recording something, but I don't think what she was looking for necessarily got recorded. If Barry Morphew was suspicious of it, why would he let it, be found in the closet? I think it was in a drawer of her bras. You just never know. Sally, can they refile if the judge dismisses? They would have to go through the indictment route because basically, they'd have to have something new, okay? You would have to have something new. I had a homicide case a couple years ago where preliminary hearing, weak case, client gets a bond, no proof, evident, presumption, great. We go get ready for trial, and we're a week or two out from trial, and then we show up saying we're ready to go, let's do this thing. And the DA dismisses and says, we're dismissing without prejudice. And the court told the prosecutor, oh, really? Like, really? And what's the reason? Oh, we can't find an essential witness. No, the reason was your case sucked. And the judge said, if you were to refile, you better have some significant new evidence because we're not going to play this game where, you refile down the road when you think you get your ducks in a row. It doesn't work that way. And, here, the DA, I think they were pressured for whatever reason because they knew Morphew was leaving town, and he could. He wasn't charged with anything. Well, now he'd have to stick around if he gets a bond. We'll have to wait and see. I want to talk to Julie before I, get a little more insight as to what took place from somebody who was actually in the courtroom. But from what I can tell from her notes is, the prosecution kept calling witnesses up, but there was no big smoking gun. And the best that you can get or glean from the prosecution's case is that they think that there was obviously a fight from what they believe to be an unhappy marriage, and that somehow Suzanne Morphew was drugged through this tranquilizer, this serum that would have had to been put into these things, those little needles, but the gun was not working when they got it. Morphew's cooperated, so either he's A, innocent, or B, the dumbest criminal ever, or I guess C, thinking he can talk his way out of it. But he, if anything, he'd talk himself into it, some of the stupid answers that he was giving. And so, like I said, it's better to look guilty than to be found guilty. And anytime something's gone away, when I've had a client keep their mouth shut, they never said, gee, thanks, Scott. I wish I had said more. They get it. They finally get it. And those police, I mean, yeah, they were looking for leads, but it looks like they were only focused on Barry Morphew the whole time. And the problem with that is the defense can easily make a case that you weren't looking for the truth. You're looking for all these things to pin Barry Morphew on and say, aha, we got you. You turned right when you turned left. You put your phone in airplane mode, and therefore you must have been doing something nefarious. Or you live in a mountain community and you're driving through areas that don't have a whole lot of reception. And so if you don't put it in airplane mode, it is constantly searching to find that signal, and it sucks the battery down super fast. There's lots of reasons to explain something along those lines. But it looks like they were out to get him. They ignore everything, and they just have to make too many leaps to get there. What does the grieving husband look like? They said he, I think at one point, had big crocodile tears coming down his face. He was crying, but he wasn't really crying. What's he supposed to look like? He's the suspect, even though, he was out of town. They know he was out of town. Basically, they've corroborated most of his story that was there. And if they think that there was some sort of cleaning detergent in his room, why wouldn't they put something on that it wasn't the swimming pool? Well, guess what? They talked to the people at the hotel, and, well, that room was right above the swimming pool. And it wasn't bleach. It was chlorine, apparently. So I just think, and maybe I'm looking, I get it. This is what I do. I have to look at this and say, can I prove that? Is there a reasonable explanation for that? Some people are so emotionally attached, saying, Barry Morphew did it. I know that he did it. Okay. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, there's a difference between belief and knowledge. I believe he did it versus I know he did it. Okay, how do you know that he did it? What evidence do you have to show that you know that he did it? Well, did he confess? No. Was he found standing over her body, with some instrumentality of death? No. Did somebody else see him do it? No. Do they have a body whereby they could do an autopsy, determine the cause and manner of death, and link that back to Barry Morphew? No, they don't. So the question is belief versus knowledge. That's what you have to go on. And I get it. All right, there's lots of things that I want to believe are true, but the only thing that matters in the courtroom, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, but the only thing that matters in the courtroom is, can you prove it? It's the only thing that matters, okay? I've had many a DA say over the years, I'm dismissing your case. It doesn't mean they don't think your client did it. I just can't prove it, okay? And that's the way our legal system works. Let's go back and take a couple more questions. Okay, the man didn't even bother to actually look for his wife. He showed zero concern for her being missing. He sold their home shortly afterwards. He's seen emptying trash in multiple places. Well, we talked about that. Good question, Tammy. He was seen emptying trash in multiple places. Well, the police don't have much of any surveillance video. They have nothing to show what was in fact thrown away. And the one video that they have apparently shows him throwing away stuff that would have come from the job site that he was at. He sells their home shortly afterwards. Okay. What we do, I've had people that have, something's gone on in their home and they move immediately. Does that mean they're guilty? No. Does that mean they were involved in some way? No. Maybe he couldn't afford it. Maybe he wanted to be closer to friends. Maybe he wanted to be closer with family. Who knows? But just selling the house, I don't think that goes to prove anything. And it's not like he ran away immediately. My understanding is that he did look in some effort. Was he out there every day searching? Suzanne. Was he looking around like O.J. Simpson, for the real killer? I don't know. But like I said, it only matters what you do, what you can prove. And him saying, so how much was he supposed to look? Was he supposed to be out there every day, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day? They had search parties. The sheriff, when people were doing search parties, were like, hey, we've kind of got this. Don't really need your help that much. So I don't know. I guess if I was a prosecutor, I'd be making the same case that they're making here in court. I'm just trying to look at it and say, maybe you get past the PH, but it's going to be a tough one, I think, to ultimately make it. Let's see here. Okay, so it's not just me. This here is scrolled by here. I think it was Sherry. But they thought they put in too much circumstantial evidence. Linda M., why would they need to discuss the affidavit on September 17th if the case wasn't moving forward? I don't know, Linda. I think that the affidavit should be released now. There's no reason for it not to be released, in my humble opinion. And I think the judge was wrong in making that decision. But, hey, he's the judge, and he's going to stick by it. If the judge signed the warrants and he knows, so why would they divulge evidence now? If the judge signed the warrants and the arrest affidavit, he knows, so why would they divulge evidence now? It's not uncommon in a small town. I mean, he's the judge. He would do that. I'm not sure I understand the question, Carol, but the reality of it is, release it. I mean, the public has a right to know, right? I truly believe that. They've had plenty of time for the defense to do their investigation. Yes, it's a small town. People are going to talk. So what? Only thing that matters is what takes place in court. All right. Tracy, strange how he threatened her brother when searching for Suzanne. Shocking. Yeah, there's clearly some family rift, but guess what? Her brother was accusing, Barry Morphew of doing that. So, that's it. Let's see here. Maria, Scott, do you know if the same judge signed the affidavit? I'm not sure. I thought there was some reference early on that the judge that oversaw the case was in fact the one that signed the affidavit. Small jurisdiction, not uncommon. However, they do have county court judges there that could have signed the arrest affidavit. So we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know. I'll try to get more information on that. But, if the judge was the one that signed the affidavit for the arrest in the first place, very unlikely that he's going to reverse himself unless something came out that truly contradicts what was in the affidavit and the judge basically feels duped. But they put everything in the affidavit, so I'm not really sure what would have happened there. So we'll have to wait and see. But shorts were washed with sheets, so clearly he must be guilty. That's right, goofy girl. That's right. But some people want to make that leap. Bridget Jones. I have neighbors who dump their trash in multiple local bins when their bins got more full. Who hasn't done that? Okay, let me tell you a dirty little secret here. All right, and the lovely Miss Kristen is listening. Listen to this, okay? Miss Kristen loves to get rid of garbage. Okay, she's constantly tearing apart packages or whatever that comes and taking out the garbage. And when the garbage man comes, oftentimes there's not enough space in that garbage can. And what does she do? Don't tell anybody, but it's true. She will walk around and put our excess garbage in other people's trash cans. I know. Isn't that crazy? Oh my God. I wonder if the lovely Miss Kristen is like disposing of things, like of evidence. Ooh. Or maybe her trash can was just full. Going back to the old, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. You can't read everything into it. It happens. Yes, I have dumped things. I have even taken garbage. When I've had, like you get a big box or something, I admit it, I've taken it, to another location and put it in a bin. I have. I wonder if people thought that if I stole that television that had the big box or something, right? Sherry Thompson, good question. From a prosecutor's perspective, all I keep thinking is why in the world did they file this case now? Never mind that he may be moving. Yeah, okay, so maybe, and I'm not looking for people to just agree with me. Frankly, if you disagree with me, put it in the comments. We'll talk about it. But I just think it seems like it's just a little premature. There's no statute of limitations. It's not like, the evidence that they have that they couldn't keep it in custody, right? I mean, they've got the gun. They've got the tranquilizer top cap that was found in the laundry room. It's all documented on the body cams. Scott, what about Suzanne journals and binders and stuff, and maybe journals cover burned in the fireplace? Well, what I knew is there's some contradictory evidence from that. Apparently the binder that they couldn't find, the journal, the one that they believe was burned in the fireplace, was not bound, I guess, it was bound, but the one that was found, or they thought that Suzanne's journal was not bound. Okay. Okay. Who put it in the fireplace? When was the fire started? Was that the actual journal? Who knows? People in Salida, Colorado, they use fires. They light fires. And who here has ever had to light a fire? I have, because you need all paper and stuff to get it going. Now let me show you here. All right. Let me see if I can find this here. Is that when I was flying back Sunday, I was flying over Salida. Okay. Frank, can I send this to you and see if you can't put this up?
Yeah. Please.
Okay. And the reason I remember thinking was I was flying back the other day, and this is from about 23,000 feet flying in CrimeTalk 1. Okay. And it's a picture of Salida. Salida's in the mountains. It's in the valley, so to speak, but it's there. But it's in the mountains. It gets cold. People light fires that live in the mountains, okay? It's a thing. Journals being burned. I mean, like I said, okay, who started it? And the police officers, they were asked questions. Who started it? When was that? When was that fire set? You know what they're going to say? We have no idea. So how is that relevant, right? It's not. Okay. Sharon, I'm going to wait on the evidence. So far, I'm with Scott. Better to look guilty than to be guilty, and I don't like Barry. Have just learned from following true crime to be patient, and that you have to be, for sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Barry Morphew, he just looks like one of those middle-aged guys that like used to hang out at the gym just a little too much, and that's his life. He wears the True Religion jeans from 20 some years ago that are all bedazzled, kind of reliving the glory days, so to speak. If I were to see that guy, I'd be like, he looks like a douche, right? But it doesn't mean that just because I think it looks like a douche that he should be convicted of a crime if he didn't commit it. We'll have to wait and see. I just don't think that it's I hope for the prosecution's sake, everything that came out at the preliminary hearing about the DNA, the gun, gun being broken, I hope that they put that in the affidavit, because if the judge feels like he was misled, I'm telling you, that could be ugly for the prosecution. But once again, I'm just not sure who signed, the affidavit. I mean, the bigger jurisdictions, they take it to a county court judge, and it's a duty judge. It's a duty magistrate. The district that they're in down there, they have several county court judges. I think they have 1 or 2 district court judges, but it's a smaller jurisdiction, a rural jurisdiction. So could it have been the same judge signed the affidavit? Sure. Does it mean that he's disqualified? No, it's his job to look at it and say, okay, I think there's probable cause. But that can also change at the preliminary hearing. So I'm not that particularly, concerned about that. And like we said, we've talked about it.
I got the image.
Okay, Frank's going to put this image up on the screen, okay? This is when I was flying back from an undisclosed location in Arizona the other day, Sunday, flying back, and I remember looking over, and it was like the Salida Airport. I'm like, oh, it showed up on the GPS, and I went and I took a little picture of it. I'm like, oh, that's Salida, and although I can't even see it on this particular photo, there's an airport down there. My first thought was I wouldn't land at that airport if that's in a little box canyon like that. But this was me flying, I think I was at 23,000 feet. But as you can see, you are in the mountains, right? It gets cold. So if somebody started a fire, could they have used old newspaper? Yeah, something along those lines. Was her journal missing? I don't know. Who knows what she actually wrote in it? Maybe she mailed it to somebody. Maybe she destroyed it herself. You just never know. Maybe the guy in Michigan dumped her and she burned it because it had all her I love you stuff in it, and she felt stupid about it. Maybe she changed her mind. We'll have to wait and see. Somebody thinks Miss Christian's going to get mad at you, spank you. Yeah, I know, it's a dirty little secret. She puts garbage in. That's because you would think, how much garbage could we possibly produce, right? It's amazing, right? You go out to dinner or you order in food, and everything comes in all these big bags and boxes. You order something from, whatever, what is it, Amazon, and, a little item about the size of a phone comes in a box about this big with all the packaging. It's amazing how much garbage we can produce. It's crazy. Okay, yeah, so there's the photo showing up there. I mean, it's just, that's Salida, right? And somebody said, well, Barry wasn't out looking. Okay. Where would you like him to begin? Right? Where do you begin? Okay, I think I'll start here and start climbing up this mountain. Where do you start? Let's see here. Let me go back here. Get some more. Oh, there's another super chat here. Corvette Foster. His ambivalence during the search at least seems plausible if he knew she was having an affair. Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm sure, like I said, what does the grieving husband that your wife doesn't want you around, who doesn't like you and is having an extramarital affair. And let's face it, if she was having an affair, their relationship is over. It's done. If she wants to go out and be with somebody else, I've told this. If you're married, but you want to go sleep with that person, and you do, guess what? That marriage is over. His marriage was over. I guess maybe there's a chance, they could revive it. Who knows? Maybe some therapy. Sounds like they were doing that already, but it doesn't sound like it was a great relationship. So how is the husband, who's basically been told it's over, I want out, how is he supposed to act? Like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm concerned, but my God, she was the one that didn't want me around anyway. I didn't do it, but who knows? I don't know. I just, we'll have to wait and see. The interesting thing that we may see from the judge is, and the judge has to follow the law, right? His job is to call balls and strikes. That's all he is supposed to do. He is not supposed to be leaning towards the prosecution or the defense. Call balls and strikes. We've talked about this before. I've talked about this, God, with just about every jury I've ever picked. As a juror, you call balls and strikes in the sense of, did something happen or not? Judges decide legal issues based upon the facts and the law. They're supposed to make their decisions with neither passion nor prejudice. And, the judge is like, okay, probably here's the affidavit. I've seen judges reject an affidavit for an arrest warrant. I've seen them reject affidavit for search warrants, usually because something is old or stale and it, may not be true at the time that they did whatever when they sent the affidavit in to the judge. But the reality is that, the judge could throw it out. He's a former public defender. Maybe he'll look at this and say, yeah, this case just sucks. And, you're welcome, DA. I'm dumping it for you. Scott, do you do one case at a time, or do you work on several cases at a time? You work on several cases at a time. Great question. You're always working on multiple cases. If you have one case, you either A, are independently wealthy, or you have the best clients in the world. But you cannot constantly work on a case 8-10 hours a day, 40 days a week until the case is done. Most cases just are not that complex, and it's easy to do. You work on multiple cases at a time. My firm has 5 attorneys. We do 4 do primarily criminal defense. We probably have 70 cases open at any given time. Ranging from murder to, minor DUIs, something along those lines. So it just depends. And you're always getting new stuff. I got a case this morning. I had to appear at WebEx as I'm getting ready to go into a jury trial and saying, Judge, I'll take the case on the other side of the state. So we got to get up to speed on that. Things change, Obviously, for example, look at Barry Morphew's attorneys. They have other cases going on. And they had to get up to speed on this, and you move things around, you juggle it. That's why when they look at calendars and scheduling, it's not just, why are the, so many times that are not available? Well, you try to coordinate all these attorneys. Sure, the DA, they go to one courthouse, right? They can be there. Defense attorneys who are private and go all over the state, you have to be there. And Salida is a good 3-4 hour drive, I think. Probably about 3.5, 4, depending on traffic. And so, it's not like you're going to do that. You're going to leave in the morning, have a, 5-10 minute court appearance, and then drive back home. You have to plan that and block that out. And you have other things that are set, deadlines that are due. So you're always juggling the calendar when it comes to the cases. A lot of things. Scott, what are your findings, thoughts on the findings in the fireplace? Okay, it looked like a burnt journal. Is it her journal? We don't know. Who set it on fire? Was it her? I don't know. Those are the kinds of things we have to look at. I don't put a whole lot of stock into it. Frankly, if someone is going to, go to all the trouble and go to all this extreme to, dispose of your wife after you've allegedly murdered her, but then you're going to burn her journal in the fireplace and not clean it out. Doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but hey, criminals, I guess, have made mistakes before. I just don't see that as something that makes a whole lot of sense. Denise, way too many steroids in Barry's days as well. Laugh out loud. Megan, convict him solely because of the genes, please. Okay, you're right. You got me there. Guilty. Camber, you obviously didn't listen to the reports. He didn't go to the job. Actually, I read what Julie was typing in her copious notes, and it's my fact that the records actually do show him at the job site. So, correct me if I'm wrong, send me proof, but it could be I was wrong. Man, there's so many comments tonight. We have a lot of people watching. This is great. Yeah, I don't get the whole hunting antler thing. That doesn't make, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Get her the tissues. I'm dying. Did they even prove Suzanne was murdered? Good question, right? Alicia Piercio. Great question. Did they even prove Suzanne was murdered? I haven't read anything that they, I think Barry had gone to court and there was like a presumption that she is deceased. And I think he got something like a power of attorney or had her declared deceased so that he could sell the house or something to that effect. But the question is, what evidence was there that she's actually deceased, right? Because one of the elements that they have to prove is that Barry Morphew, the defendant in this particular case, that he, after deliberation, killed Suzanne Morphew. I mean, what evidence is there that she's gone other than they believe that she's gone because she left without her purse, she left without her wallet, she's on a bike, it was found near a ditch, and nobody's, off the road, and nobody's seen her since. Okay, once again, I don't know. Great question. Great question. Can Barry be released if it case goes trial? If the case is bound over and the court does not find that proof evident was presumption great, which means overwhelming evidence of his guilt, which would make him a flight risk, yes, that means that he can be released. He could be given a bond. Then the question is, how big will the bond be? Would it be so much that he couldn't pay his attorneys if he posted the bond? So he'd have to stay in custody to pay the attorneys, or we'd do it to get out and, try to figure out some other thing. And, 6-8 months down the road, he can't afford the attorneys anymore. And next thing you know, they're getting off the case. We'll have to wait and see. Yes, Hannabella. My understanding is Colorado law, circumstantial evidence is the same as direct evidence. This will help the case to be correct. Well, hold on. Good question. Yes, circumstantial and direct evidence is viewed as the same. What's the example? Simple example of direct and circumstantial evidence. If I look out the window and I see that it is snowing and there's snow on the ground, that is direct evidence that I saw that it snowed. Circumstantial evidence would be that when you went to bed, there was no snow on the ground. You wake up in the morning and there's snow on the ground, but you never actually saw it snow. But circumstantial evidence can be that obviously it must have snowed even though you didn't see it, right? Circumstantial evidence. It's given the same, it's not discredited under the eyes of the law. However, it's better if you have some direct evidence. The problem when you have too many circumstances is that everything has to all flow together. You see those things, the videos where they drop the little ball and it rolls down and then it hits something. It hits the bowling ball pin and it goes and boom, 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 boom. That's kind of like circumstantial evidence, Instead of just going to hit the ball at the very end that goes into the swimming pool or something along those lines, you go through all these little paths and deweys, and everything's got to come out just right for it to work. And it's just easier. What would you rather have? Somebody say, yes, I saw the bad man do the bad thing to Suzanne Morphew, or what the prosecution put out over the 4 days of the preliminary hearing. So, like I said, will it probably get bound over to the district court? Yeah. Is it a great case for the prosecution? I don't think it's overwhelming, but who knows? Maybe they'll come up with something different at the preliminary at a trial if it gets that far. Why wait so long? September 17th. Good question. We'll have to ask Julie, but my guess is it has something to do with scheduling and attorneys' availabilities. Good question. Kimberly DeStefano. Scott, do you assess the cases you take based upon whether you think they're guilty or whether you think the case has merit? You seem like you have a good set of morals. Wonder how you decide. Oh, boy. This is going to get me in trouble. Obviously, you like to have only righteous cases that you take. Your client is absolutely innocent, but guess what? Guilty clients need representation as well. And, payroll for, 4 other attorneys, it doesn't come, you just don't run out to the money tree and shake that tree. Everybody's entitled to a defense. So it normally comes down to whether people can pay. And then you go from there. And, sometimes you can help a client out. Sometimes you can say, man, they got you. There's not much I can do for you other than try to get you the best plea bargain that I can. That's just happening. Scott, a question by Jason Smith, super chat here. Scott, how can they charge him with tampering with a corpse if they can't even establish that she's deceased? Isn't that a specific charge? Yes, it is. Yes, they have to be able to show that she is deceased. And I think that's a great question. It's like, what evidence have they shown? More of just it's an assumption that she's deceased. Now, let's be realistic. More than likely, she probably is deceased. But how do we know? How do we know for sure? We'll just have to wait and see. Let's see here. Now, the lovely Miss Kristen was giving me some dirty looks because she wasn't pleased with me letting the world know that she dumps our garbage into other people's trash can. And she says, I asked the other neighbors first before they could do that. Okay, that's what gets you through the day. So, yeah. And, oh, look, we have Miss Winnie the Bulldog has joined us. And was it a good massage there, the lovely Miss Kristen? Best massage ever. See, this is what you do. You find the best masseuse you can find. I think this particular masseuse was from the Four Seasons, if I remember correctly. And just simply say, oh, my God, can't you just come to the house and do it? And next thing you know, you're hooked, and then it's the best. Hempland, Texas. Didn't the arrest affidavit say he was tampering with human remains? Did any evidence show this? I mean, they just kind of take the leap here from what I can tell from what I've seen and heard from that she was somehow, I think their theory is that somehow she was, had an argument. She was drugged by the tranquilizer, whereupon she would, her breathing would be heavy, almost sounds like she's snoring, incapacitated, and then disposed of. Of course, they can't say when it happened, what were the other means of manner of death, where did it take place, where did he take her, etc., etc., etc. All those things, right? Remember the old game of Clue? You had to solve the mystery. It was the butler in the pantry with a candlestick, right? those are kind of things that you want to be able to show a jury so they can say, oh, yeah. Because I think, jurors take their jobs very seriously. They're not going to just say, we don't care if, where she is, or do we really know that she's deceased, right? I mean, it's happened, but the one that comes to mind is the Patrick Frazee case. But what did they do? They had to get Crystal Lee Kenny to testify. What did she get? She got a smoking good deal, right? Oh, and by the way, who was her attorney in that case? Remember Crystal Lee Kenny? Drew Nielsen. Barry Morphew's attorney. So I'm telling you, Drew Nielsen is a great attorney. Iris Itan, I know of her. I've seen her work, but I've never dealt with her. Drew Nielsen, she used to be a public defender in a courtroom that I used to do a lot of work in years and years ago. She was a very good attorney, great attorney. I'm saying great attorney. Iris Itan is no slouch. She is super, super smart. She is a great attorney. Some people may not like their styles, but they go after it because they're zealously representing their clients. Okay. All right. Wow. I can't believe we've already been over an hour, haven't we? Wow. All right. Well, man, there's a lot of comments tonight. Jeez. Tell her many of us do the same thing with our trash. I know. She, she doesn't want to admit. I've seen her put it in people's trash that she didn't ask. That's right. She maybe even makes me do it. Lies, Mr. Reich. It was the butler in the study with the flat screen TV and the roll of paper towel. Don't ask. Rosie Rose, that's right. MSW88. Susan was deemed incapacitated by the court. I'm not sure what that means. Hannibal, do you think prosecution gave just enough evidence at preliminary hearing to get the trial so the defense would not have more information that they needed? Guess what? Everything has to be turned over to the from the prosecution to the defense as soon as the prosecution gets it. Anything good, bad, or indifferent, the prosecution has to turn it over if it's in their care, custody, and control. I'm telling you, no prosecutor sandbags and says, I'm not going to give the best of my evidence at the preliminary hearing. No, they're trying to keep him from getting a bond. They may get the case bound over, but I think Barry Morphew is going to get a bond. And I don't think it's going to be like a $5 or $10 million bond. It may be a couple $100,000 bond. So the DAs were trying to do that. And if that was their argument, maybe the judge is wanting to argument as it relates to the proof of evidence presumption, great. But I'm just, I just don't see it. I don't know. We'll see. See, someone says Itan is a rock star. I'm telling you, she's a real deal. Both of them are. Let's see. If this case goes to trial, how long would it last? My God, at this pace, I'd say block out 3 weeks on your calendar. Scott, would the prosecution need to present all evidence in the affidavit at the preliminary hearing? They don't have to present all of it at the preliminary hearing. That's their choice. But they're kind of stuck with what they put on at the hearing. The court can take judicial notice of its files and its records and look at the affidavit, but you can't just say, we're not going to put on any evidence. They have to put on evidence, and that's the record. And that's what the judge is going to make his findings on, is what's in the record and what is put in court, what evidence was testified to. And understand, we have multiple layers of hearsay as it relates to all these documents that people were getting from phones and things like that, having a detective just testify to it. At trial, there are going to be layers and layers of witnesses to come testify to this just to lay the appropriate foundation. So it's going to take a while if this was going to go. And I just think there wasn't, I don't know, we'll see. We're going to have to wait and see. Let's see. Mandy, question, super chat. Can the prosecution continue to discover evidence to add to the prosecution during the trial if one is allowed? Yes. the prosecution can continue to investigate their case, and anything that they do, guess what, has to be turned over to the defense. So the prosecution, sometimes there's like, well, I'm not going to make my case worse, so I'm not going to go look for anything, because if it's bad for the prosecution, they still have to turn it over to the defense. And so the prosecution is going to do what they can, but they have to turn it over. But I've seen cases that have been great for the defense. I've had clients like, oh, they got nothing. And then when they start investigating the case, you get closer to trial, it's like, oh, crap, they figured it out. Oh, man, we need to get a deal now, before things get worse. So you go back and say, is that deal still available? So, yeah, you never know. And that's 6 months from the date, there's a not guilty plea entered. Bottom line is, it's not that long in the big picture of life, but it's an eternity in the criminal defense world, because so much work can be done. So much new evidence can come out. It's a lot of things can change. So we'll see. Hey, Moses.
Hey, Scott.
How are you?
Good.
Moses, thanks for coming to give Kristen her massage.
No problem.
Hope all is well. All right. I cannot believe we've already got an hour and a half, but we had so many people on tonight. That's great. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to stop our live show tonight. I once again apologize late because I was in trial, and I've been raced here to get home. So now we have the sunset behind us, a beautiful Central Park here. But now we're going to have to take a quick break, and we're going to do our Patreon show. So if you're not a Patreon member, now is the time to join. We'll continue this conversation. Do we have the setup that we can take calls, Frank?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be able to take calls. So, that's the beautiful thing about Patreon is our Patreon people can call in and we can have the same conversation. And like I said, I haven't seen anything. If you think I'm missing something that had come out at this preliminary hearing, let me know. I just don't think that I'm missing something, but if I am, let me know. I'll change. I may change my position if there's some new evidence that I wasn't aware of. It's always possible. Like I said, I've been in trial all day, so let me know. All right, we're going to end it here. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I know that you have other things that you could be doing, family you could be with, so the fact that you decided to spend the time with us does not go unappreciated. I assure you of that. Should be done with my trial. I hope by tomorrow we'll figure something out to try to get a show up one way or the other. If not, you know where I am. But as soon as we can, we'll get Julie in to talk about what she observed down there at the Barry Morphew preliminary hearing. And, we'll see what her thoughts were. Like I said, she went in there thinking, yeah, old Barry Morphew, how could you do that to your wife, Suzanne? I don't know if she's still of that same mindset. And, I think she's pretty strong-willed. So if she thought that was what it is, and like I said, maybe maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. I don't know. We have to give him the presumption of innocence, right? And we're going to have to wait and see. So, all right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see all our Patreon members hopefully in about 10 minutes or so. And don't remember, we'll give you the call-in number as well, and we'll take your calls. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time on Crime Talk.